Hey everybody, this is Perch. Fair warning. So this mail from a viewer I'm about to read goes a little bit hard. I think it goes a little hard. And if I'm being honest with you, my first reaction, and this is becoming my first reaction for a lot of things lately, is what you're thinking about this too much. You're overthinking it to some extent. It's like there's a splinter under your skin, and it hurts and it's annoying, and you feel it all the time, and you'd like to get it out, and you talk about getting it out, and you complain about getting it out, and it hurts you some more. And at some point, you need to go grab the damn tweezers or the needle or whatever it's going to take and get the splinter out and just pull it out. But there you go. So anyway, let's read this mail and see what everybody thinks. I also think this mail writer probably does a successful job of offending everyone. But we'll see. Hey, Perch. I listen to your show, but I'm not one of those people who love it. One of the reasons I don't love it is I've given up on comics. They're not fun anymore. The people aren't fun, they're too expensive, and the stories suck. I gave up on mainstream comics about 3 years ago, and I'm embarrassed to say I was one of those people who fell into the trap of the creators are all mean and rude to customers, and I'm offended by it. But if I'm what but to be real, but to be real, okay. But to be real, what was actually going on was I just hated the comics at the time. The art was bad, the stories were worse. Every now and then when I watch one of your videos and I see panels from current comics, I think to myself, how could it have gotten worse? But it did. So I gave up on current comics. I tried going the indie route of looking at indie comics, like you suggested, saying there will be some comics there for me. There were not. The comics were by and large the same boring, go nowhere comics and stories, and resembled nothing like what I've enjoyed in the past. I also tried Indiegogo and crowdfunding because people were telling me if I didn't like current mainstream comics, all of the real talent was there. However, I can safely say after reading 30 comics that I paid for that were crowdfunded, they suck just as bad, if not worse. The stories are terrible, the art is garbage, and people are pretending like somehow this is better than what Marvel has going on. It isn't. They're amateur level comics that never have a conclusion, and in general, all of this stuff sucks. I hate it. Meanwhile, we have a bunch of people who scream at you for not liking their work. And I have to ask, who the fuck gives a shit about what Fat Dan Slott has to say? He's eating himself to death. Who cares what he does with his comics? But to be honest, that's most of the people in comics. All of them could use a treadmill. Where? How do we go here? It feels like we're okay. I feel like we're driving around, and then suddenly we took a left turn. It's okay. Um, I don't know. Okay, back to the mail. I don't think I'm ever going to get back the love and enjoyment that I used to have for comics. And I think this is true for a lot of people, and they just need to stop pretending that it could be any other way. I see a lot of people fighting with each other, and if you ask me, they enjoy the community of fighting because that's all they do. But none of them really give a shit about the comics. That would explain why people defend absolute garbage from Marvel, DC, and yes, Comicsgate as well. All of these comics are about the same. Unreadable. Prove me wrong. And then there's a PS here I'm not going to read. Okay. Look, so, I'm not sure if there was a question in there, but I appreciate it. I don't know. Where did I first hear the insult eating yourself to death? I think it came from, it was George R. R. Martin. And people were making jokes about how he was never going to finish Game of Thrones in that series because he was eating himself to death. And, well, you're not wrong. Anyway, I don't know. It is weird. The pandemic definitely fattened some creators up because there were, pre-pandemic, there was I don't know, I'd say a healthy mix of different things. And then post-pandemic, there's been some weight gain for sure. But I mean, what are you going to do? You're sitting at home, and you're not wearing that mask all the time. Sometimes you're putting food in there. Um, anyway, okay, Nancy. Um, all right. So there's not a question here, but the answer that I give when I see stuff like this, and I'm seeing more of this, by the way, for a long time, and I think the part of the mail that captured my attention there was this journey of I got tired of mainstream comics. I went the indie route. I went the crowdfunding route, and I'm now here at the end of that journey, and nothing really seems to have changed. And I'm seeing a lot more people get into that mode for sometimes different reasons. I think quality is, people say quality is in the eye of the beholder, and there's some truth to that. But there's also some basics there as well. Like if a comic prints pages in the wrong order, or we hurry up with the inking to the point that it changes the original art and looks weird, or the coloring is off and is done wrong, that's not subjective quality anymore. That's objective quality, and I think there's lots of that goes on. But I mean, look, you got a handful of really good art talents out there. You do doing all kinds of different work in different companies. Mark Miller just stole some pretty badass art talents over to do his work. And then you have some good colorists, and you have some good writers. You have a few good of everything out there. And then you have a lot of people who are either phoning it in, doing the same stuff they've always done. It breaks my heart because I deeply, deeply love John Romita Jr. And when I look at Amazing Spider-Man, I mean, there's a panel with the Vulture that's just, I don't know, his neck looks like 3 feet long, and it's like, man, what's going? What do you? What's? So, are you slow him down? Like give him more time. I don't know. It's heartbreaking to see. And then I think there's some other people who are just not ready for prime time. It's like, again, using the wrestling analogy, you take a bunch of jobbers and you're like, congratulations, you're headlining WrestleMania, and it's like, but we've never really even wrestled in front of a crowd before, and we don't know most of the moves. We've pretty much we've nailed the lariat and the spear, and that's it. It's like, congratulations, Goldberg. You can no, I'm kidding, but I mean that's what a lot of this stuff feels like some of the time is you see people on books, Avengers, X-Men, Justice League, titles like that. The event books used to be heavily protected. And now you're seeing people who have close to no comic experience being thrown onto those titles. And I mean, that seems like a problem. As for the quality of crowdfunded stuff, I don't know. I agree. So I see these posts of like the true amazing talent are doing these crowdfunded books. And I mean, sometimes, but in many cases, I think some of the crowdfunded books use the same tricks as the mainstream books, which is they'll take a panel or two or a cover and they'll say, look at this amazing detailed art. And it is. But then when you read the book and you go through panel by panel, it's like, all right, well, this art doesn't sequentially match up at all. And you pick the best panels to put out. And I don't know. I mean, so I do think there's a little bit of a, stone and glass house situation that goes on there. Like if you're tired of the mainstream, you come over here for much better work. And I mean, not always. And I'm sure that will piss some people off, but it's true. But look at you, the writer of this. You're clearly pissed off, or rather, you've lost your enjoyment of comics. And I think here's the part that regardless of what anybody else thinks, for you, cool. Stop reading them. And I don't mean that as a sarcastic thing. I mean, you know what you want already. You're not having fun. You don't enjoy the books. Yeah, you're good. You've moved on. That's not a bad thing. That the only bad thing about it is if you know you've moved on in your heart, but you keep either paying or bitching or being involved anyway. And I do think there's a lot of people who have moved to that state where they don't enjoy comics anymore. And but they're still around. And that's harmful. I mean, it's bad for you. It's bad to continue to, it's like, I know I hate Arby's. If I went to Arby's every day and I just had a miserable experience, do I blame Arby's for that? I mean, that's why am I doing that to myself? I mean, the only silver lining in that entire situation would be I'll be dead within a month from eating that crap that they serve. But so my suffering won't last forever. But in comics, don't suffer for years. Just be done. And you owe no, there's no, you have no responsibility to stay in. You have no responsibility to, you know, complain from the sidelines. It's fine to complain. I'm not saying you can't do that. But if you hate comics and you're finding no enjoyment of them and you've tried different things, and I'll take you at your word that you've done all these, you've done mainstream indies and the crowdfunded books and you found no enjoyment in any of those, then you're done. I don't know, maybe you still enjoy back issues, in which case, you can, lots of people having that search right now where they've pretty much cut themselves off from anything published in the last 10 years and they're just looking backward. And fortunately for comics, and I made this point before, there are thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of comics out there waiting to be discovered. And quite frankly, I think one of the digital innovations that could be helpful is somebody who actually goes and, not on a company by company basis, but actually goes and gets all these back issues somehow, and there's some legal issues in this, and creates the true marketplace for all comics. I mean, I think a lot of people want to go in that direction. If that's where you find your happiness, great. I was watching or I saw some tweet from a comic pro, and I don't think it was Mark Brooks, but it may have been. It was somebody in that zone, maybe like a Brooks or a Mitch Gerards or somebody. It's one of those people who was making some disparaging comment about back issues, like, oh, you're one of those people who just only claims to only read back issues. And it was this post where you kind of scratch your head with it, because it's like, bro, everything you do in 1 month becomes a back issue. You do understand that, right? This isn't. It's always going to move to back issues, and people who read back issues often do get excited about characters and concepts, and then read new issues. Why? What the hell? I get it. I just have no respect for the people who want to pick at something somebody likes. If you like a mainstream comic, if you're really enjoying the X-Men era, I don't. But I can say it honestly, if you enjoy it, I'm glad good for you. I'm glad for you. That's not a sarcasm coded like wink, you're an idiot. No, I'm glad for you. You found something you liked. And what, am I going to sit here and shit on you because you like something I don't? What a stupid, petty thing that would be. But there's plenty of it. You see people really going at people like, you like that mainstream crap. Imagine how much more would get done from everyone, including, the creators who are doing crowdfunding, who, maybe get a book out once a year, sometimes 2-3 years. Imagine if you saved all the time from bitching about stuff you're not involved in and moved to just getting your shit done. You'd probably, imagine what kind of business empire you could run. I mean, this, of course, ignores the fact that in a lot of cases, and this goes for people like Brooks and the mainstream, people in the indie scene, a whole big aspect of their persona is shitting on the other stuff. That's what gets them attention. There's a reason why, every few weeks, Heather Antos will write something around, I hate these CG people or whatever. Like, everybody knows her opinion on this. That ground has been covered so thoroughly over the last 2 years. Like, nobody's going to come to that going, I wonder what she's talking about. I think I will go investigate and educate myself. None of that's happening anymore. So why does she do it? Well, because every time she does, the 100 or 200 or so odd people who are like, oh yeah, I remember this fight. I like this fight. I'll like this post and retweet it. What a waste of time for everybody. But that's why I do. It's attention gathering. That's why Brooks does what he does. It's why a lot of the YouTubers do what they do. It's how they get attention. However, and maybe this is the simple fact of it, for a lot of these people, there isn't a better product being put out there besides the bitching. I mean, what Antos is editing the Star Trek books right now. I know there are Star Trek fans out there, but those things don't sell. Not any kind of real numbers. Who cares? So it's like, even if you put more effort into that as an editor of Star Trek titles, like nobody's really going to care. But still, I think you're living a happier life. You can live your life any way you want. When I see emails like this and you're like, I hate comics, I don't know what if you're asking me like, what do I do now? My answer is enjoy whatever the hell you found. You know, video games, books, beer, Arby's. I don't know. Whatever you are into, go for it. If you have nothing, if everything sucks everywhere in all parts of your life, I mean, I don't know. Therapy probably is your next stop. I don't know, but go find that thing you enjoy, do it, and then have no excuses, no shame. You get to do what you want to do, say what you want to say. That's becoming a song now. Just there you go. I don't. It's a funny thing. Don't eat yourself to death. That's Dan Slott eating himself to death. Good God. Anyway, well, there you go. Hope you're having a good day and you're doing something you enjoy. I'm driving on these Texas roads, which I absolutely hate. Like, I don't know. I won't go on that rant. Anyway, thanks for listening.